Katie Morgan wiped the sweat from her forehead as she stared at the massive alien ship floating dead in space. The ship was twice the size of her own vessel, the Meridian, and it looked like nothing she had ever seen before. Dark metal plates covered its hull like armor. Strange blue lights flickered along its sides, but most of them were dim or completely dark. "That's a Vorthak warship," said Captain Brooks over the comm. His voice was tense. "Intel says they're proud warriors. They don't like other species very much." Katie nodded as she gathered her tools. She was the chief engineer on the Meridian, and fixing broken things was what she did best. It didn't matter if the broken thing belonged to humans or aliens. "Understood, Captain, but they sent a distress signal. Someone over there needs help." Luna. Blackwood floated beside Katie in the shuttle bay. The half-elf navigator had violet eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Her pointed ears twitched slightly as she studied the alien ship. "I can sense strong emotions from that vessel," Luna said quietly. "Pride, anger, and something else. Fear, maybe." Amy Chen checked her pilot controls one more time. The young woman had short black hair and quick hands that never stopped moving. "Well, they're about to get a dose of human stubbornness, whether they like it or not," Amy said with a grin. The shuttle flew across the empty space between the two ships. As they got closer, Katie could see the damage to the Vorthak vessel. Huge. Holes had been torn in the hull. Pieces of metal floated around the ship like angry bees. Whatever had attacked this ship had been serious about destroying it. "This is Human Vessel Meridian," Captain Brooks called over the radio. "We received your distress signal. Do you need assistance?" The response came in a voice that sounded like gravel mixed with thunder. "This is Commander Zaraleth of the Vorthak, Defense Fleet. We do not require aid from lesser species. Withdraw immediately." Katie raised her eyebrows. "Lesser species? That's friendly?" Luna placed a gentle hand on Katie's arm. "Their culture values strength above all else. Asking for help makes them look weak." Amy guided the shuttle toward the damaged ship's docking bay. "Good thing we're not asking permission, then." The docking bay was huge and dark. Emergency lights cast red shadows across twisted metal and debris. As soon as their shuttle landed, Katie could hear the hiss of escaping air somewhere in the distance. The ship was dying slowly. 3 Vorthak warriors waited for them at the shuttle door. They were tall, maybe 7 feet each, with silver skin that seemed to glow in the dim light. Strange patterns pulsed with red light across their faces and arms. They wore dark armor that looked like it could stop a tank shell. The one in the middle stepped forward. Her patterns glowed brighter red, which Katie guessed meant she was angry. Very angry. "I am Commander Zaraleth," the alien said. Her voice was deep and powerful. "You were ordered to leave. Why do you disobey?" Katie stepped out of the shuttle with her toolkit. She was much smaller than the aliens, but she didn't seem scared. "Because you're going to die if someone doesn't fix your reactor, and I'm really good at fixing reactors." Zaraleth's patterns flashed brighter. "Vorthak do not accept charity from inferior beings. We are warriors, not beggars." "Good thing this isn't charity, then," Katie said as she walked past the commander. "This is just good manners. Where I come from, you help people who need help. It's that simple." Luna followed behind Katie, her eyes scanning the damaged corridor. The elf could sense the commander's confusion. Zaraleth was angry, but she was also curious about these strange humans who didn't seem to understand how dangerous Vorthak could be. Amy stayed with the shuttle but kept one hand near her weapon. She watched the other Vorthak warriors, noting how they moved. They were trained fighters, but they seemed uncertain about what to do with visitors who weren't trying to fight or run away. Katie found the reactor room easily enough. The damage was bad but not impossible to fix. The Vorthak had tried to repair it using their own methods, but their technology was different from human tech. They built things to last forever, which meant they were hard to fix when they broke. "Your fusion containment field is collapsing," Katie told Commander Zaraleth, who had followed her to the reactor room. "You've got maybe 6 hours before this whole ship becomes a very bright explosion." "Our engineers estimate 12 hours, Zaraleth replied stiffly. Katie shook her head as she opened her toolkit. "Your engineers are wrong. I can see the quantum fluctuations in the field matrix. Trust me on this one." For the next 4 hours, Katie worked on the alien reactor. She rerouted power conduits using spare parts from her own ship. She bypassed damaged control systems with equipment that shouldn't have worked with Vorthak technology. She even used her jacket as insulation for one particularly dangerous repair. Luna helped by translating between human and Vorthak technical terms. The elf's long life had given her knowledge of many different technologies. Amy kept watch and made sure no one tried to stop Katie from working. Commander Zaraleth watched everything Katie did. The alien's pattern slowly changed from angry red to confused blue to something that might have been amazement. The human was doing things that shouldn't be possible. She was making Vorthak technology work better than Vorthak engineers could make it work. When Katie finally stepped back from the reactor, it was humming smoothly. All the warning lights had turned green. The ship's life support systems came back online with a relieved sigh. "There," Katie said, wiping grease from her hands. "That should hold you until you can get to a proper repair station." Zaraleth stared at the reactor readings. According to her instruments, the human had not only fixed the damage, but had somehow improved the reactor's efficiency by 15%. That was impossible. Humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be weak. "How?" Zaraleth asked quietly. Katie shrugged. "Sometimes you have to think outside the box. Your people build things to last, which is great. But when something breaks, you need to be creative to fix it. Humans are pretty good at being creative." As the human team prepared to leave, Zaraleth made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. "Wait," she called out. "I request continued technical consultation." Katie turned back with a smile. "You mean you want us to stick around? For a while?" Zaraleth's patterns flickered through several colors before settling on something that might have been embarrassment. "Your methods are unconventional, but they are effective. Perhaps there is more to learn from your species than our intelligence report suggested." Luna smiled softly. She could sense the real reason for the commander's request. The proud Vorthak warrior was fascinated by humans, and she wanted to understand how they thought. Amy grinned as she started up the shuttle. "Looks like we're making friends after all." As they flew back to the Meridian, Katie looked out at the Vorthak ship. Its lights were bright and steady now. She had helped save hundreds of alien lives today, and she felt good about that. She didn't know that her simple act of kindness had just changed the course of galactic history. On the Vorthak ship, Commander Zaraleth stood in her command center and watched the human vessel. For the first time in her life, she wondered if strength meant something different than she had always believed. 3 days later, Katie found herself standing in the cargo bay of a Vorthak warship. The ceiling was so high she could barely see it in the dim red light. Everything was built for people much larger than humans. She felt like a child visiting a museum made for giants. Commander Zaraleth had invited the human team aboard for what she called formal diplomatic exchange. Katie wasn't sure what that meant, but she was curious about how the aliens lived. The Vorthak ship was nothing like human vessels. Where human ships had soft lighting and comfortable spaces for people to relax, the Vorthak ship felt like a fortress. Sharp edges and dark corners were everywhere. The walls were covered with weapons and symbols that probably meant something important to warriors. "Their whole culture is built around conflict," Luna whispered to Katie as they walked through the corridors. The elf's pointed ears were pressed back slightly, a sign she was nervous. "I can feel it in the air. Competition, dominance, the need to prove strength. It's exhausting." Amy walked beside them with her hands loose at her sides, ready to grab her weapon if needed. "No wonder they think we're weird," she said quietly. "We actually like working together." Commander Zaraleth led them to a large room filled with other Vorthak officers. Their silver skin gleamed under the harsh lights, and their bioluminescent patterns shifted constantly as they watched the humans. Katie could tell they were all trying to figure out whether the humans were threats or just strange curiosities. "You will observe our navigation procedures," Zaraleth announced. "Perhaps you will learn something useful." The Vorthak navigation system was impressive but complicated. 3 different officers worked at separate stations, each one trying to prove they were better than the others. They argued constantly about the best route through an asteroid field, their patterns flashing with competitive anger. Amy watched for a few minutes, then shook her head. You know, there's an easier way to do this. The room went quiet. Vorthak turned to stare at the small human pilot. What did you say? Asked the lead navigator, a large male whose patterns were now glowing bright orange. Amy pointed at their display. Your current route takes 18 hours to get through the asteroid field. If you adjust your approach angle by 15 degrees and use a spiral pattern instead of trying to go straight through, you could do it in 12 hours. The orange glow on the navigator's skin got brighter. You dare question Vorthak navigation methods? I'm not questioning anything, Amy said with a shrug. I'm just pointing out a faster route. What happened next made Katie's heart skip a beat. The Vorthak navigator stepped forward and placed his hand on the hilt of a curved blade at his belt. You have challenged my competence. Honor demands satisfaction. Luna quickly stepped between Amy and the angry alien. The elf's violet eyes were wide with alarm. Please, there's been a misunderstanding. In human culture, suggesting improvements isn't a personal attack. It's how we help each other. Commander Zara Leth watched the scene with interest. Her patterns were cycling through colors Katie had never seen before. Explain this concept, she said. Katie moved closer to Amy, ready to protect her friend if necessary. When humans work together, we share ideas to make things better. If someone sees a problem or has a suggestion, they speak up. It's not about proving who's smarter. It's about finding the best solution. The navigator's patterns flashed with confusion. But if her method is better than mine, it proves I am inferior. No, Luna said gently. It proves that two minds working together are better than one mind working alone. Amy's suggestion doesn't make you weaker. It makes your whole team stronger. Zara Leth held up her hand, and the navigator stepped back. The commander's patterns were shifting rapidly now, as if she was thinking hard about something difficult. Show me this spiral pattern, she said to Amy. Amy moved to the navigation console and began entering coordinates. Her hands flew over the alien controls like she had been using them for years. Within minutes, she had plotted a new course through the asteroid field. The Vorthak officers studied the display in silence. Even Katie could see that Amy's route was much more efficient than theirs. This is impossible, muttered one of the officers. Humans are supposed to be primitive. Maybe your intelligence reports are wrong, Katie said with a small smile. Later, in the ship's dining hall, the cultural differences became even more obvious. Vorthak ate their meals in complete silence, each warrior focused on their own food. They sat apart from each other, even though there was plenty of room at the long tables. The humans sat together and talked while they ate. Katie told stories about fixing impossible problems on various space stations. Amy described some of her more dangerous piloting adventures. Luna shared tales from her long life, including funny stories about the differences between human and elven customs. Zara Leth sat nearby, listening to everything. Her patterns kept changing colors as she watched the humans interact. When Katie laughed at one of Amy's jokes, the alien commander's skin flickered with something that might have been confusion or wonder. Why do you share your failures? Zara Leth asked suddenly. The humans looked at her with surprise. I beg your pardon? Katie said. Your stories. You tell each other about times when you made mistakes or faced difficulties. In Vorthak culture, we only speak of victories and successes. Amy grinned. Because failures are funny, and funny stories make people happy. Besides, talking about mistakes helps everyone learn what not to do next time. And, Luna added thoughtfully, sharing our struggles helps us feel less alone. When you know that other people have faced similar problems, it makes your own problems seem less scary. Zara Leth's patterns shifted to a deep blue color. This is difficult to understand. Vorthak are taught that showing weakness invites attack. But you're not showing weakness, Katie said. You're showing trust. When I tell my friends about my mistakes, I'm trusting them not to use that information against me. And they're trusting me with their own stories. The commander was quiet for a long time after that. She watched the humans continue their conversation, noting how they supported each other, how they listened when someone spoke, how they seemed genuinely interested in each other's lives. When the meal was over, Zara Leth walked with Katie back, toward the docking bay. Your people confuse me, the alien said quietly. How so? You are small and soft compared to Vorthak. You have no natural weapons, no thick skin to protect you. By all logic, you should be weak. But you accomplish things that seem impossible. You work together instead of competing. You help others even when there is no benefit to yourselves. Katie smiled. Maybe strength isn't about being the biggest, or the toughest. Maybe it's about taking care of each other. Zaraleth stopped walking. Her patterns cycled through several colors before settling on something Katie had never seen before. A soft, silvery glow. I would like to observe your operations for an extended period, the commander said. For strategic intelligence purposes, of course. Katie nodded, though she suspected the real reason was more personal. Of course. You're welcome to visit any time. As the human team prepared to leave, Zaraleth stood in the docking bay and watched their shuttle disappear into space. For the first time in her adult life, she found herself questioning everything she had been taught about strength, honor, and what it meant to be superior. Her second-in-command approached her. Commander, the humans' methods are unusual. Should we report this to High Command? Zaraleth's patterns shifted to thoughtful purple. Not yet, she said. I need to understand more about these creatures. They may be more dangerous than we realized. But even as she said it, Zaraleth knew that wasn't the right word. The humans weren't dangerous in the way Vorthak understood danger. They were something else entirely. Something that challenged everything she thought she knew about the universe, and that scared her more than any weapon ever could. The emergency alarm woke Katie from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in her quarters as Captain Brooks' voice echoed through the ship's speakers. All hands to battle stations. We have received a distress call from the colony ship New Hope. They are under attack by raiders and need immediate assistance. Katie jumped out of bed and ran to the bridge. Amy was already at her pilot station, fingers dancing over the controls as she plotted a course to the colony ship. Luna stood beside the captain, her violet eyes focused on the star charts. How far? Katie asked. 6 hours at maximum speed, Amy replied. But we're not the only ones responding to the distress call. On the main screen, a familiar shape appeared, beside them in space. Commander Zaraleth's warship had arrived, its dark hull gleaming in the starlight. Human vessel Meridian, came the commander's voice over the radio. We detected the same distress signal. Vorthak protocol requires us to investigate. Captain Brooks opened a channel. Glad to have you with us, Commander. 2 ships are better than 1. When they arrived at the New Hope's location, the scene was chaos. The colony ship was massive, designed to carry 10,000 families to a new world, but it was also slow and barely armed. 3 smaller raider ships circled it like wolves around a wounded deer, firing weapons and demanding surrender. They want the cargo, Luna said, studying the scanner readings. Food, medical supplies, and industrial equipment, enough to supply a pirate base for years. Amy brought the Meridian in fast, using the ship's small size to avoid the raiders. Bigger guns. What's the plan, Captain? Save as many people as possible, Brooks replied. Standard rescue protocol. Katie listened to the radio chatter between the Meridian and Zaraleth's ship. The Vorthak commander had a very different idea about how to handle the situation. We will destroy the raider vessels, Zaraleth announced. A quick victory will discourage other pirates from attacking ships in this sector. Negative, Captain, Brooks replied. Our priority is protecting the civilians. If we start a firefight near the colony ship, innocent people could get hurt. The strong survive, the weak do not, Zaraleth said. This is the natural order. Katie shook her head and opened her own channel to the Vorthak ship. Commander, there are children on that colony ship. Thousands of them. Are you really willing to let them die for the sake of a quick victory? There was a long pause before Zaraleth responded. What do you propose? Over the next hour, Katie watched the differences between human and Vorthak military thinking play out in real time. Amy used the Meridian's speed and maneuverability to dart between the raider ships, drawing their fire away from the colony ship. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy, she focused on protecting the innocent. Meanwhile, Katie worked on a solution that no military manual had ever described. Using spare parts from the ship's workshop, she built a makeshift tractor beam powerful, enough to pull escape pods away from the battle zone. That's impossible, said Commander Zaraleth when Katie explained her plan. Tractor beams require massive amounts of power. Your ship is too small. It doesn't have to be perfect, Katie replied as she welded components together. It just has to work long enough to save people. Luna coordinated between the two ships, her elven intuition helping her translate between human flexibility and Vorthak rigid protocols. When Amy needed to make a dangerous maneuver to rescue a damaged escape pod, Luna convinced Zaraleth to provide covering fire. The tractor beam worked, barely. Katie's jury-rigged device pulled 17 escape pods full of families away from the burning colony ship. The beam failed after 20 minutes, but by then Amy had positioned the Meridian to shield the pods from enemy fire. During the rescue operation, something happened that changed everything. A Raider missile hit the Vorthak ship's outer hull, causing an explosion that trapped 3 Vorthak warriors in a damaged compartment. The area was filling with toxic gas, and the warriors would die within minutes. Zaraleth ordered her crew to seal the compartment and write off the trapped warriors. "Their deaths will be honored," she said over the radio. "We cannot risk more lives for warriors who are already lost." Katie heard this and felt her heart break. "No," she said firmly. "Nobody gets left behind." Before anyone could stop her, Katie put on a spacesuit and launched herself from the Meridian's airlock. She flew across the empty space between the ships, using her suit's small thrusters to navigate around floating debris. Amy watched on the scanner, her hands gripping the pilot controls. "Katie, what are you doing? Those aren't even our people." "They're people," Katie replied simply. "That's enough." Katie reached the damaged Vorthak ship and found the trapped compartment. The walls were cracked and leaking atmosphere, but her engineering experience helped her locate the problem quickly. Using her portable welding torch, she sealed the worst cracks and rerouted emergency power to the life support systems. The 3 trapped Vorthak warriors stared at her in amazement. They were huge compared to Katie, with enough strength to crush her without effort. But here was this tiny human risking her own life to save theirs. "Why?" one of them asked in broken human language. Katie smiled behind her helmet visor. "Because you needed help, and I could give it." By the time Katie had freed the trapped warriors, Amy had chased off the remaining Raider ships. The battle was over, and hundreds of civilian lives had been saved. But on the Vorthak ship, Commander Zaraleth stood in her command center and struggled to understand what she had just witnessed. The small human had risked everything to save Vorthak warriors she had never met. There was no strategic value in her actions, no personal benefit, no glory to be gained. When Katie returned to the Meridian, Zaraleth requested a private communication channel. "Why did you save my warriors?" the commander asked. Her bioluminescent patterns were cycling through colors Katie had never seen before. "Because they needed saving," Katie replied. "It's really that simple. But they are not your people. They owe you no loyalty. Their deaths would not have affected you personally." Katie was quiet for a moment, trying to find words that would make sense to the alien commander. "Where I come from, we have a saying. No one fights alone. It means that when someone is in trouble, you help them. It doesn't matter who they are or where they come from. You help because it's the right thing to do." Zaraleth's patterns shifted to a deep, pulsing blue. "Your species continues to confuse me. You act against your own interests to help others. You choose cooperation over domination. You risk yourselves for people you barely know. This is too much for my mind to process." "Maybe that's the point," Katie said gently. "Maybe some things are supposed to be felt instead of understood." After the rescue ships arrived to help the colony vessel, both the Meridian and Zaraleth's ship returned to their patrol routes. But something had changed during the battle. The Vorthak commander found herself thinking about human behavior in ways that disturbed her. That night, alone in her quarters, Zaraleth stared at reports about human military tactics and civilian rescue protocols. Everything about their species contradicted what she had been taught about strength and survival. They should have been easy to defeat, easy to dismiss as inferior. Instead, she found herself admiring them. And that admission terrified her more than any enemy she had ever faced. Her second-in-command entered with the daily reports. "Commander, High Command is requesting an update on your observations of the human vessels." Zaraleth's patterns flickered with uncertainty. Tell them the situation requires further study. But even as she said it, Zaraleth knew that wasn't the real truth. The real truth was that the humans had shown her a different way of thinking about strength, honor, and what it meant to be worthy of respect. And she wasn't sure she could go back to the old way of thinking, even if she wanted to. Commander Zaraleth stood before the High Command Council on her homeworld of Vorthak Prime. The massive chamber was carved from black stone, with pillars that reached toward a ceiling lost in shadows. 12 of the most powerful Vorthak leaders sat in judgment, their silver skin gleaming under harsh spotlights. "Report on your observations of the human species," commanded General Corveth, the eldest member of the council. His bioluminescent patterns glowed with the deep red of absolute authority. Zaraleth felt her own patterns shift nervously. She had been dreading this moment for weeks. "The humans are more capable than our intelligence suggested." "Explain." General Corveth said. "They demonstrate advanced problem-solving abilities. Their engineering techniques, while unconventional, produce effective results. Their military tactics prioritize preservation of life over tactical advantage." Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Several members flashed patterns of disbelief. "You claim that a species of soft, weak creatures can match Vorthak capabilities?" asked Councillor Taravel, her patterns glowing with skeptical orange. Zaraleth straightened her shoulders. "I witnessed a human engineer repair our reactor using improvised methods that our own technicians said were impossible. I watched human pilots save hundreds of civilians while under enemy fire. They risked their lives to rescue Vorthak warriors they had never met." The council chamber fell silent. General Corveth's patterns shifted to a dangerous dark red. "Are you suggesting that humans are superior to Vorthak?" he asked quietly. "I am suggesting that we may have underestimated them," Zaraleth replied carefully. "Impossible," snapped Councillor Gathara. "Humans have no natural weapons, no armor, no significant military strength. They are prey species at best." Zaraleth felt frustration building in her chest. "With respect, Counselor, you have not observed them as I have. Their strength comes from different sources than ours." "What sources?" General Corveth demanded. Zaraleth hesitated. How could she explain human cooperation to people who saw collaboration as weakness? How could she describe their willingness to sacrifice for others to a culture that valued individual dominance above all else? "They work together," she said finally. "Instead of competing with each other, they support each other. They share knowledge, freely. They protect those who cannot protect themselves." The council chamber erupted in flashing patterns of anger and disbelief. "Weakness," shouted Councillor Velthon. "You describe weakness and call it strength." "They have compromised your thinking," General Corveth said, his voice cold. "You have been influenced by alien concepts that weaken your judgment." Zaraleth's patterns flared bright blue with indignation. "I have observed facts and reported them honestly. If those facts contradict our assumptions, perhaps our assumptions are wrong." The silence that followed was deadly. No one spoke to the High Command Council that way and remained in a position of authority. "You will undergo mental reconditioning," General Corveth declared. "These alien influences will be purged from your mind. You will remember your duty to Vorthak superiority." Fear shot through Zaraleth's body, but she forced her patterns to remain steady. "I respectfully decline reconditioning. My observations are accurate and my loyalty to Vorthak is unquestionable." "Your loyalty is exactly what we question," Councillor Taravel said. "You speak of humans with admiration that should be reserved for Vorthak achievements." Zaraleth left the council chamber feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. She walked through the capital city of her homeworld, observing things she had never noticed before. Vorthak citizens avoided eye contact with each other. They competed for resources instead of sharing them. They celebrated individual victories while ignoring communal needs. For the first time, Zaraleth wondered if human society might actually be healthier than Vorthak society. Meanwhile, billions of light years away, Katie Morgan was having her own problems. The Meridian had been assigned to explore a dangerous nebula system, and the mission was not going well. "The gravitational fields are too unstable," Amy reported from the pilot's seat. I can barely keep us on course, and the radiation is playing havoc with our sensors. Luna stood at the science station, her elven features tense with concentration. I'm detecting some kind of artificial structure deep in the nebula's core. It's massive, but I can't get clear readings through all this interference. Katie studied the engineering displays with growing concern. The energy discharges are overloading our shield generators. We can't stay in here much longer without risking serious damage. Captain Brooks frowned at the main screen, which showed nothing but swirling clouds of glowing gas. We need more information before we can proceed. This whole region could be hiding anything from ancient ruins to active weapons systems. Amy suddenly looked up from her controls. I'm getting an incoming message. It's Commander Zaraleth. The Vorthak commander's face appeared on the screen. Her patterns were flickering rapidly, cycling through colors that suggested extreme agitation. Human vessel Meridian, you are in immediate danger. Vorthak High Command has ordered a military intercept of your mission. A battle group is en route to your location. Captain Brooks leaned forward. Why are you warning us? Isn't this treason against your own people? Zaraleth's patterns shifted to a steady blue glow. My people have forgotten what honor truly means. They see your compassion as weakness, your cooperation as a threat to Vorthak dominance. They plan to destroy you to prove their superiority. Katie felt her heart sink. How long do we have? Perhaps 6 hours before the battle group arrives. You must leave the nebula immediately. Luna stepped closer to the screen. Commander, what about you? What will happen when they discover you warned us? Zaraleth's patterns flickered with something that might have been sadness. I will be branded a traitor and exiled from Vorthak, space. But I cannot stand by and watch them destroy people who showed me a better way to live. Amy whistled softly. That's a hell of a choice to make. It is not a choice, Zaraleth replied. It is the right thing to do. I learned that from watching humans. After the communication ended, Katie sat in stunned silence. The proud Vorthak commander was giving up everything, her career, her people, her entire way of life, to protect humans she barely knew. She's sacrificing herself for us, Luna said quietly. Just like you did when you saved those Vorthak warriors. Amy shook her head in amazement. We really are too much for most species to handle, aren't we? We're like emotional overload for anyone who isn't used to our brand of crazy. Katie had to laugh despite the dangerous situation. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. If our way of thinking can turn a proud warrior into someone willing to risk everything for strangers, maybe we're doing something right. Captain Brooks activated the ship's communication system. All hands, prepare for immediate departure. We're leaving the nebula and taking our new ally with us. On her ship, rushing through space toward an uncertain future, Zaraleth felt something she had never experienced before. For the first time in her life, she had chosen to do what felt right instead of what was expected of her. Her second-in-command approached cautiously. Commander, High Command is demanding an explanation for our course change. Zaraleth's patterns settled into a calm, steady glow. Tell them that Commander Zaraleth no longer serves the Vorthak High Command. I serve something more important now. What is that, Commander? Zaraleth looked at the stars ahead, where somewhere in the distance, a small human ship was carrying people who had taught her that strength came from caring for others. I serve the idea that there might be a better way to live than the one we were taught. Behind them, a Vorthak battle group searched the empty nebula, finding nothing but gas clouds and radiation. Their target had escaped, aided by one of their own, who had learned that some things were worth more than following orders, and in the darkness between the stars, two ships flew side by side toward an unknown destiny, carrying the seeds of a friendship that would change the galaxy. The ancient artifact was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It hung in space like a giant crystal flower, its transparent petals stretching for kilometers in every direction. Inside its core, swirling energies created patterns of light. That hurt to look at directly. My God, whispered Captain Brooks as he stared at the main screen. What is that thing? Luna's violet eyes were wide with wonder and fear. It's old, really old. I can feel the weight of time pressing down on it like a physical thing. Katie studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. Whatever it is, It's affecting space-time in a radius of several light years. Gravity is fluctuating. Time is running at different speeds in different areas, and the local space is becoming unstable. Amy gripped her pilot controls as the ship shuddered around them. It's like flying through a storm made of reality itself. Commander Zaraleth's voice came over the communication channel from her nearby ship. Our sensors detect massive temporal distortions emanating from the structure. If this continues, it could affect dozens of star systems. Any idea what it is? Katie asked. Vorthak records mention similar artifacts, Zaraleth replied. Ancient devices left behind by extinct civilizations. Most were destroyed by previous explorers because they were deemed too dangerous to study. Katie felt her heart sink. You're talking about destroying it, aren't you? It is the logical solution. A controlled antimatter detonation could collapse the artifact and end the spatial distortions. But we don't know what it does, Luna protested. What if it's important? What if it's trying to help someone? Amy laughed bitterly. Great. We're arguing about whether to blow up a giant space mystery. That's breaking the laws of physics. Katie made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. We're not destroying it. We're going to try to understand it. That is extremely dangerous, Zaraleth warned. Approaching the artifact could tear your ship apart. Then come with us, Katie said simply. 2 ships have a better chance than 1. There was a long pause before Zaraleth responded. Very well, but this goes against all Vorthak military doctrine. Good, Katie said with a grin. We're making progress. The next few hours were the most dangerous of Katie's life. Both ships approached the artifact carefully, using every sensor they had to map the distortion fields around it. Amy's piloting skills kept them from being torn apart by gravitational anomalies, while Luna used her elven intuition to sense safe paths through the chaos. As they got closer, the artifact's purpose became clearer. Katie realized it wasn't a weapon or an experiment gone wrong. It was something much more profound. It's a shelter, she announced over the radio. Look at the energy patterns in the core. It's maintaining a stable pocket of space-time inside itself. Luna's eyes lit up with understanding. A refugee shelter. Some ancient civilization built this to protect themselves from a cosmic disaster. Zaraleth's voice was filled with confusion. But the distortions, the danger to surrounding systems, it's been running for millions of years, Katie explained. The control systems are breaking down. It's trying to maintain the shelter, but it's also accidentally affecting the space around it. Amy guided their ship closer to one of the artifact's crystalline petals. So what do? We can't just leave it running if it's going to tear apart local space. Katie was already working on the problem, her engineering mind racing through possibilities. We fix it. We repair the control systems so it can maintain the shelter without affecting the rest of space. Impossible, Zaraleth said immediately. The technology is too advanced, too alien. Vorthak doctrine would require its destruction. Well, it's a good thing we're not following Vorthak doctrine then, Katie replied. Over the next 12 hours, Katie performed the most complex repair job of her career. Using a combination of human engineering creativity, Luna's ancient knowledge, and Amy's precise piloting, they managed to enter the artifact's control systems. What they found inside took their breath away. The artifact wasn't just maintaining a shelter, it was preserving an entire ecosystem. Thousands of different species, many of them extinct in the outside universe, lived in perfect harmony within the crystalline structure. It's not just a refugee shelter, Luna whispered in awe. It's a conservation vault. These people didn't just save themselves. They saved everyone they could. Zaraleth's ship joined them inside the artifact, and the commander herself came aboard the Meridian to see the repairs in person. Her bioluminescent patterns cycled through colors Katie had never seen before. This is what you meant, Zaraleth said quietly as she watched Katie work on the alien control systems. This is the strength you were talking about. Katie looked up from her tools. What do you mean? These ancient people could have built weapons to fight their enemies. They could have built shelters for only their own species. Instead, they built something to save everyone they could reach. Amy nodded from the pilot's seat. They chose protection over destruction, cooperation over domination. just like humans do," Luna added with a smile. Zaraleth's patterns shifted to a soft, steady glow. "Yes, just like humans do." The repair took Katie 18 hours of continuous work. She had to integrate human technology with alien systems that were older than Earth's solar system. Several times the job seemed impossible, but each time she found a way to make it work. Luna helped by translating between different technological approaches, her long life giving her insight into how various civilizations solved similar problems. Amy kept both ships positioned perfectly within the artifact's chaotic interior, making microscopic adjustments to avoid gravitational anomalies. And Zaraleth surprised everyone by offering tactical support, using her command authority to coordinate between the human and Vorthak crews, even though doing so violated every rule she had been taught. When the repairs were finally complete, the artifact's distortion field stabilized. The space-time anomalies disappeared, leaving only a gentle energy signature that wouldn't affect nearby star systems. Inside the crystal structure, millions of preserved beings continued their lives in safety, protected by technology that valued preservation over destruction. "We did it," Katie said, exhaustion clear in her voice. "The shelter is stable and the local space is safe." Zaraleth stood beside her, studying the readouts from her own ship's sensors. "You were right," she said, quietly. "About strength, about cooperation, about choosing to protect instead of destroy." "What will you do now?" Luna asked. "You can't go back to your people after helping us." Zaraleth's patterns shifted through several colors before settling on something that might have been contentment. "I do not want to go back. What I have learned here, what you have shown me, this is who I want to be." Katie smiled tiredly. "You mean you want to join our crew? If you will have me. I know I have much to learn about human ways of thinking." Amy laughed from the pilot's seat. "Are you kidding? We'd love to have you. Just be warned, we're pretty intense for most people to handle." Zaraleth's patterns brightened to a warm, silvery glow that none of them had seen before. "Earlier, you said I was right when I told you that you were too much for me. Too much kindness, too much courage, too much hope for the universe?" Katie nodded. "That sounds about right." "I have realized something," Zaraleth continued. "The universe needs more too much. It needs beings who care too deeply, who help too readily, who hope too strongly for a better future." Luna smiled softly. "And now you're one of those beings." Zaraleth looked around at her new companions, the brilliant engineer who risked everything to help others, the gifted pilot who protected the innocent, the wise navigator who brought out the best in everyone around her. "Yes," she said, her patterns now cycling through colors that had never existed in traditional Vorthak emotional spectrums. "I am." As their ships left the ancient artifact behind, Katie looked out at the stars and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had saved millions of lives, preserved an ancient wonder, and gained a new friend who would help them face whatever challenges lay ahead. Behind them, the crystal shelter continued its ancient mission, protecting the innocent and preserving life in all its forms. It was a monument to the idea that some things were worth more than victory, more valuable than domination, more important than individual glory. It was a monument to the kind of strength that humans understood instinctively, the strength that came from choosing to care for others, even when it was difficult, even when it was dangerous, even when it required you to change everything you thought you knew about what it meant to be strong. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, 4 friends flew together toward new adventures, carrying with them the knowledge that the universe was a little bit safer because they had chosen cooperation over conflict, preservation over destruction, and hope over fear, even when it was too much for most people to handle.